I used to work for Uber Eats, delivering to the hungry people. The night was just like any other, with orders coming in one after the other. I got a ping on my app for a pizza delivery to a house I'd never been to before. It was a bit out of the way, but was located amongst other houses in what seemed like a quiet neighborhood. I accepted the order and headed towards the house. I was parked in front of the house while sitting in my car with the engine running, making sure it was the right place. I noticed that some of the neighbors was standing in their windows and looking at me in my car. They just kept staring at me those 2 minutes I sat there. I grabbed the pizza, walked towards the house and rang the doorbell, expecting someone to answer, but no one did. I waited a bit. It was freezing, but the warmth from the pizza was helping my cold hands. I rang the doorbell again and stepped back to look through the windows. Frustrated, I tried calling the customer. I was walking around the house and looking through different windows while I was waiting for someone to pick up the phone. Finally, someone answered. He said he was an old man and explained that he had a hard time walking and told me to just go inside and leave the pizza on the table. It sounded strange, but I figured I'd just do as he said so I could get on with my job. It also seemed legit in a way since he was so slow at responding to me. While I approached the door, I got eye contact with one of the neighbors in the window. I nodded at her and she opened the window and asked what I was doing. I thought to myself that it seemed obvious. I told her I was delivering a pizza. She shouted that I got the wrong address. No one lives in there and the house is for sale. I said I had a delivery for a Mr. Thompson. She said that the couple who lived there wasn't called Thompsons. Double-checking the address on the app. It was the right one, but the neighbor's interaction made me question the whole situation. I walked back to my car and decided to drive back to the place that the pizza was ordered from. Just before I drove away, I glanced back at the house. The curtains upstairs was pulled aside, and the man looking down at me was not an old man. I slammed my foot on the gas and sped away from that place as fast as I could. I didn't care if I had to pay for the pizza. I just didn't feel safe at all. One thing was sure, I wasn't going to stick around to find out. I wanted to share my terrifying experience working as a food delivery driver as a woman. It's a job I wouldn't recommend to anyone, and I felt like I was pushed to the brink, constantly haunted by the fear of the unknown. Here's my story, and trust me, it's all true. My journey into the world of food delivery began when I applied for a gig as a driver. They gave me a 30-minute briefing, and then I was handed a delivery bag, a phone, and sent off into the night. No training, no guidance, just me, my car, and a bunch of addresses. The first few days were all right. I mean, I was getting paid weekly, which was good. But as time went on, the money seemed to get paid too late or I'd get paid the wrong amount, which would leave me in a bad financial situation. I realized that the job came with a lot more than just dropping off food to people. It was a descent into a world of fear and uncertainty. One thing that stood out was the way I was treated by the staff at the food delivery company. It was as if they didn't care about my safety at all. They'd often send me to sketchy neighborhoods late at night without any consideration for the potential dangers. When I'd question them about it, they'd just shrug it off, saying I had no choice if I wanted to meet the minimum guarantee for the week. It was a lose-lose situation. The horror didn't stop there, though. The customers I encountered were sometimes just as bad as the neighborhoods. I had people who would insult me, degrade me, and even threaten me. It was like they thought they were entitled to more than the takeaway. The worst thing that ever happened to me was this one time when I had to deliver to this remote area. I won't mention his name or the city, mainly for my safety. The house itself was a mess. That was often an indicator of the person being a jerk. It looked like it hadn't been taken care of for years and weeds were growing wildly in the yard. But I couldn't let my fear get the best of me. I had a job to do and couldn't afford to cancel the order and risk my employment. I knocked on the door, and after what felt like an eternity, it opened. He had this sinister grin on his face that immediately set off warning bells in my head. I tried to be polite and handed him the food, but he didn't return the courtesy. Instead, he started demoralizing me, calling me names and making inappropriate comments and told me to get inside. I tried to stay professional and asked for the payment. As I extended my hand to receive the payment, he grabbed my arm with a vice-like grip. I felt his fingers digging into my skin, and I was paralyzed with fear. His smile transformed into a sinister grin, and I realized that I was in real danger. With all the strength I could muster, I kicked as hard as I could and hit him right between his legs. I managed to twist my arm away, leaving behind a trail of red marks. I sprinted back to my car and sped away from the house. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing. I reported the incident to my employer, but he just told me to suck it up, and that I'm probably just overreacting. That's when I knew this wasn't going to be the last time this would happen. So, I told him I wouldn't do this anymore and quit the job. I used to work as a pizza delivery girl at a local pizza house. It was a Friday evening. I was working the late shift. We got an order and the instructions stated that it had to be a female delivery driver because it was for the person's elderly mother. He didn't want her to be startled by a guy showing up with a pizza. I've had some strange requests before, but this still felt weird. I get that you want your mom to feel safe, but it just felt off. Still, I figured I could relate to the whole safety thing, so I grabbed the pizza and set off. The address led me to an old apartment building in the middle of the town. I thought it would be all right because there were lots of residents. There was a piece of paper taped to the door of the apartment that said "knock" loudly. I thought maybe this person is just overly cautious, so I knocked as instructed. The moment my knuckles rapped against the door, I felt someone on the other side. It was like they were peering at me through the peephole, and that's when my heart started racing. "I have a pizza delivery for you, ma'am," I said. I didn't hear any footsteps, but saw the mail slot opening. Within a few seconds, an erect penis was hanging out of the mail slot with a sticky note on top that said, "Money is under the doormat. Here is your tip." I automatically took a few steps back, and the door flew open immediately. A man appeared in the doorframe, completely butt naked. It was just so bizarre and unsettling. I knew I had to get out of there, so I quickly ran away. The man yelled out that such a cute girl like me should come inside and share the pizza with him. As I got back to my work, I told my coworkers and manager what had happened. My manager was a bit irritated that I didn't get the money for the pizza. We called the police, who went to investigate, but when they went to check on him, he had boarded up his door and would not come out. I never heard anything from it again.